So how many cases do you have at a time as a probation officer? So by the end of this video, you will know how many cases you have and what it feels like to manage that amount of cases. So my name is Sarah and I worked as a probation officer. I now share videos for you guys to really understand what the job is like so you can get a realistic view. And I share tips for how you can be successful in the whole application process to become a probation officer. If you are watching this and you are not sure what career you want to go into, but you know you want to work in criminal justice or forensic psychology, then all of these videos are going to be just as useful for you as well. Bear in mind, I worked in case management a few years ago, but I'm just going to give you my experience. You may hear different experience from other people and there are some variations, but I'm just going to go through my own experience, and I think it's always good just to hear one person's experience. That's going to help you. So when I was a trainee, you get a protected caseload, and what that means is they can't pile on too many cases all at once, so you can't go from 0 to 20, gradually build you up. And the best practice, ideal standard is, so I remember my first week I had 1, maybe the second week I had 3 or 4, and then by the third week 10, something like that. I can't really remember. I qualified or I passed, trained in like 2013, so that's like 10 years ago now. It's supposed to be gradual because you can get used to it, and they start you off with the lower end cases. So my first case was a theft offence. After that it was fraud. I really remember these things. I think maybe because it was such a significant time. But yeah, fraud, theft, possession of cannabis. They were like my first couple of cases. And because they were my first ones, I really got stuck into them and I really wanted to delve into it and get all the details. But it gets you used to setting appointments for that person, managing your time. It gets you used to writing up the assessments for them, and it just gets you used to actually working with a real person, because you will be working with a real person very much early on. Yeah, that's the first thing. It's gradual. Second thing is, I think, so when you work as a trainee, I think you work 35 hours. I won't go into the ins and outs of how they manage it, but they do some kind of percentage, but they call the workload measurement tool, but that's never accurate. People are always working over that. So how many did I have as a trainee? I remember I was in an office that had a high volume of cases, so I think I was on about 30. And that was quite excessive as a trainee. But what we was told is, well, that's just the office, you're going to get all the good experience. Yes, I've got experience, but it's still hard. And then the second office I went to was quite decent actually. It was the best office I worked in, and I think I had about 35 as a full-time officer. And then the last office I worked in was horrendous, and I think I was working 24 hours then, so I was part-time, and I had about 35, I think, around that, maybe less. But yeah, if you have a high caseload, if you're watching this, that is a lot, to be honest. That is a lot. I feel like you can comfortably, I remember when I used to speak to people that trained maybe 10 years before me, and they'd be like, yeah, we have like 7 or 8 cases the whole training. That's just not real anymore. You will have to manage multiple cases. So I would say if you are full-time, once you're qualified, you may have around 40 to 50. But again, it depends. If you have more high-risk cases, you may have a little bit less because there's more weight to them. And what I mean by that is there's more work generated. So you're going to have lots of agency meetings. You're going to have more reports that are going to be taken longer. The assessments are going to be taken longer. So you may have a little bit less, but it's still the intensity of the work is still high, which is why it's really difficult to compare how many cases you've got, because it depends on what those cases are and how stable they are. One minute someone can be stable, next minute they generate lots of work. So it is very not as straightforward as how many cases have you got. But yes, in general, the caseload is high. There may be some areas where it's not so high. Where I worked, the other trainee had a lot less cases. The last office I was in, the other office in the cluster had a lot less cases. So it depends where you are. Typically, if you are in an inner city, so maybe if you're in Manchester, Birmingham, certain areas in London, you are going to have higher cases than out in these other areas. So I hope that helped. It just gives you a sense of, yeah, how many cases do people have. So yes, it is highly pressured. Yes, I believe that you can get through it, which is why I wrote my book. So make sure you get it on Amazon, because that will help you actually just make sure you're looking after yourself as you're training and post-qualifying as well. So make sure you get that so you can really look after yourself. Start getting into the practice of looking after yourself now so that it doesn't catch up to you when you are training. Right, I'll see you in the next video for loads more tips, and thanks for all the comments. I do really appreciate all your comments and hearing how you're getting on with the application process.